We need to adjust your compensation to industry standards. 30% less with no bonuses moving forward, Melissa announced, her voice crisp and detached as she straightened the papers in front of her. It's purely business. Austin nodded beside her, not quite meeting my eyes. The corporate office has done extensive analysis on administrative compensation. This brings you in line with national averages. I sat across from them in the newly remodeled conference room of Desert Bloom Dental, the practice I'd helped build from the ground up. The walls had recently been repainted from our warm southwestern coral to a sterile gray that matched the new corporate branding. I kept my face carefully neutral, despite the anger bubbling inside me. I'll need to review the terms carefully, I replied, taking the folder they slid across the table. My voice remained steady, professional, just as it had been during the thousands of patient interactions I'd managed over the past 18 years. Of course, Melissa said with a thin smile, clearly relieved I hadn't made a scene. We'll need your decision by Friday. My name is Barbara Green, and until 3 months ago, I was the office manager of the most successful dental practice in Chandler, Arizona. For nearly 2 decades, I'd worked alongside Dr. Franklin Hughes, building Desert Bloom Dental from a struggling 2-chair operation into a thriving practice with 6 treatment rooms and over 3,000 loyal patients. When Dr. Hughes announced his retirement last year, the staff had been nervous but hopeful. He assured us the corporate group buying the practice, Southwest Dental Partners, understood the value of our patient-centered approach. They're keeping the entire team intact, he had promised. They recognize what makes us special. What Dr. Hughes hadn't understood was that corporate dentistry operates differently. Numbers matter more than names. Efficiency trumps relationships. And apparently, a dedicated office manager with 18 years of experience could be reduced to a line item on a spreadsheet. As I walked back to my office, I noticed Jessica, our newest hygienist, looking worried as she prepared her station for the next patient. "Everything okay?" she asked quietly. I nodded. Just some administrative changes being discussed. I wasn't ready to share the news yet, not until I'd processed it myself. Back at my desk, I opened my drawer and pulled out the business card I'd received 2 weeks earlier at the regional dental conference. Dr. Nathan Fuller had approached me during the lunch break, expressing admiration for how Desert Bloom operated. "If you ever consider making a change," he had said, "I'd love to discuss some ideas with you." At the time, I'd politely tucked the card away. Now, I picked up my phone and dialed the number. I've never considered myself irreplaceable. After all, in healthcare administration, the goal is to create systems so efficient that operations continue smoothly regardless of who's managing them. But there's a difference between building reliable systems and building relationships. Systems can be replicated. Relationships take years. Dr. Hughes understood this. From the day he hired me, when I was a 32-year-old single mother with administrative experience but no dental background, he recognized something in me that went beyond my resume. "Barbara," he'd said during my interview, "I can teach anyone about dental procedures and insurance codes. What I can't teach is how to genuinely care about people." Over the years, I'd become more than an office manager. I was the face patients saw when they walked in, the voice that called to check on them after difficult procedures, the person who remembered their children's names and college graduations. I knew which patients needed extra time in the schedule, which ones required billing flexibility during hard times, and which ones would drive across town for their favorite hygienist. When elderly patients couldn't drive, I organized transportation. When families struggled financially, I found ways to work with insurance companies to maximize their benefits. When frightened children came in, I had special toys waiting and knew exactly which approach would calm their fears. My desk drawer contained 18 years of thank you cards, not addressed to Desert Bloom Dental, but to me personally. Austin and Melissa had been running Desert Bloom for 3 months now. They'd arrived with spreadsheets and corporate manuals, introducing efficiency protocols and patient processing improvements. Dr. Hughes had barely cleared out his office before they replaced our comfortable waiting room furniture with sleek, identical chairs that matched their corporate branding. The staff tried to adapt. I tried to explain our community's unique needs. Our Thursday evening hours are essential for our working families, I told them, when they suggested cutting those appointments. And Mrs. Wilson always brings homemade cookies for the staff on Fridays. It's been her tradition for 12 years. We appreciate your input, Austin would say, before proceeding with whatever change their corporate template dictated. I began noticing the subtle shifts in patient responses, the confused looks when they were rushed through check-in, the disappointed sighs when told certain services were no longer offered, the hesitation when asked to prepay for treatments. "Has Dr. Hughes actually retired?" Mrs. Peterson had whispered to me last week. "This doesn't feel like the same place anymore." I had smiled and assured her we were still committed to excellent care, but walking back to my office after my compensation meeting with Austin and Melissa, I wondered if that was still true. And more importantly, if I could still be part of it. "They want to cut my salary by 30%, I explained to Dr. Fuller 3 hours later. We sat in a quiet corner of Wildflower Bread Company, away from the lunch crowd. "No more performance bonuses either." Dr. Fuller nodded thoughtfully, stirring his iced tea. "Unfortunately, that's becoming standard practice when corporate groups acquire independent dental offices. They see administrative staff as an expense to minimize, not an asset to value." At 45, Nathan Fuller had the confident demeanor of someone who knew his worth. He'd spent the past decade working for various dental groups, but had grown increasingly frustrated with corporate dentistry's approach. "I've been saving to open my own practice," he continued. "Something smaller, more patient-focused. The kind of place where we know every patient by name, not by production value." "That sounds like what Desert Bloom used to be," I said, unable to keep the wistfulness from my voice. "Exactly. And that's why I wanted to talk with you." He leaned forward. "Barbara, I've asked around. Everyone in the Chandler dental community knows you're the one who really built Desert Bloom. Dr. Hughes was an excellent dentist, but you created the experience that kept patients coming back." I felt my cheeks warm at the unexpected praise. "We were a team. A team you coordinated," he insisted. "I'd like to propose a partnership of sorts. I have the clinical skills and some capital, but I need someone who understands how to build and maintain a thriving practice." He paused, watching my reaction carefully. "Someone like you." I blinked, surprised by the directness of his offer. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you equity," he clarified. 20% ownership in the new practice, with salary comparable to what you were making before the cut. I don't just need an office manager. I need a partner." The idea was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. After 18 years of security, the thought of starting fresh made my stomach tighten with anxiety. Yet beneath that fear was something else, something that felt remarkably like hope. "I don't know, Dr. Fuller. Starting a new practice from scratch." "Not from scratch," he interrupted gently. "With your experience and community connections. With your understanding of what patients in this area need and want." I stirred my coffee, considering his words. Southwest Dental would see it as direct competition. His smile contained a hint of challenge. They should. On the drive back to Desert Bloom, my mind raced with possibilities and concerns. The practical side of me listed all the reasons to simply accept the pay cut. Job security, familiar surroundings, no disruption to my comfortable routine. I was 50 years old. Was this really the time to take such a risk? Yet as I pulled into the parking lot and saw the new corporate signage that had replaced our familiar Desert Bloom logo, something hardened inside me. This wasn't just about money. It was about 18 years of dedication being reduced to a line item on a corporate balance sheet. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Fuller. No pressure, but the vacant office space next to Desert Bloom just became available. Perfect location. Just saying. I couldn't help but laugh at the audacity and the perfect poetic justice of his suggestion. "You're considering what?" My daughter Catherine stared at me across our kitchen table, her fork suspended midway to her mouth. "At 28, She had inherited my practicality and caution, which made her reaction to my news entirely predictable. "Opening a new dental practice with Dr. Fuller," I repeated, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "As a partner, not just an employee." "Mom, you've worked at Desert Bloom for nearly 2 decades. You're talking about competing directly against your former employer. Isn't that, I don't know, risky?" I poured more iced tea into our glasses, buying time to organize my thoughts. Our Sunday dinners had always been a safe space for honest conversation, and I needed that now more than ever. "It's definitely risky," I acknowledged. "But staying at Desert Bloom means accepting that my 18 years of service are worth 30% less than they were 3 months ago." Catherine's expression softened. "I get that it's insulting. But starting a business at 50, next door to your current workplace, that seems extreme, even for you." I smiled wryly. "Even for predictable, play-it-safe Barbara?" "You know what I mean." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I just don't want to see you get hurt, professionally or financially." Her concern was valid. I'd spent my adult life making careful, measured decisions. After her father left when she was 6, I'd prioritized stability above all else. Our modest home was nearly paid off. My retirement account was growing steadily. I'd established a comfortable, if not exciting, life. "I've been doing some research," I said, pulling a folder from the sideboard drawer. "Dr. Fuller has excellent credentials and a solid reputation. The location is perfect. Patients wouldn't even have to change their driving route, and I've run the numbers." I opened the folder to reveal spreadsheets I'd spent the weekend creating. Even with conservative estimates for patient transfer, we could be profitable within 9 months. Catherine raised an eyebrow, impressed despite herself. "You've really thought this through." "I have," I admitted, "but there's something else." I took a deep breath. "This isn't just about money, Catherine. It's about standing up for myself, for the first time in a very long time." The following morning, I requested a meeting with Austin and Melissa. They seemed surprised by my calm demeanor as I settled into a chair across from them. "I've reviewed your compensation adjustment proposal," I began, using their corporate terminology. "Unfortunately, I won't be accepting the new terms." Austin's relief was visible. "I'm glad you're being reasonable, Barbara. The transition will be much smoother with your cooperation." "I think you misunderstand," I interrupted gently. "I'm not accepting the terms because I'm resigning." The stunned silence that followed gave me a small, satisfying glimpse of what was to come. "Resigning?" Melissa recovered first. "Where would you go? You've been here your entire career." "I'll be helping establish a new dental practice," I replied simply. Austin's expression darkened. "Barbara, I remind you that your employment contract includes a non-compete clause." I smiled, feeling oddly liberated. I reviewed that with an attorney yesterday. The clause was in Dr. Hughes's original contract, but the terms weren't transferred properly when Southwest Dental took over. It's unenforceable. This wasn't entirely accurate. There was some legal gray area, but the momentary panic on their faces was worth the small deception. "You can't seriously be considering competing against us," Melissa said. "After everything this practice has done for you, everything this practice has done for me," I repeated, my voice finally betraying a hint of the anger I'd been suppressing. "I built this practice. I'm not competing against Desert Bloom. I'm reclaiming what I helped create." As I stood to leave, Austin's voice took on a threatening edge. "The corporate office won't take this lightly. They have resources you can't imagine." I paused at the door. "And I have relationships you can't replace." The next 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. I worked my notice period at Desert Bloom with scrupulous professionalism, training my replacement, a nervous 24-year-old named Jennifer with a business degree but no dental experience, while simultaneously helping Dr. Fuller secure the lease on the adjacent office space. The irony wasn't lost on me. During the day, I maintained Desert Bloom's scheduling system and patient records. In the evenings, I designed a competing system for what would become Sunridge Family Dental. "Do you think they suspect anything?" Dr. Fuller asked one night as we reviewed floor plans for the new space. "They know I'm leaving to work with another dental practice," I replied. "They just don't know where yet." He grinned. "The location is going to be quite a shock." "It's a practical business decision," I said, echoing the corporate language Austin and Melissa had used so often. "The demographic analysis supports it." In truth, the proximity was both practical and personal. Practical because it would make the transition seamless for patients who decided to follow me. Personal because, yes, I wanted Austin and Melissa to see exactly what they had discarded. My final day at Desert Bloom arrived with little fanfare. Austin and Melissa had grown increasingly cold as my departure approached, minimizing their interactions with me. The staff, sensing the tension, had organized a small farewell gathering during lunch. "We'll miss you, Barbara," Jessica said, handing me a card signed by everyone. "It won't be the same without you." I hugged her tightly. "I'll miss all of you too." I hesitated, then added carefully, "If any of you ever need anything, I'm not going far." Later, as I packed the personal items from my desk, Melissa appeared in my doorway. "Barbara, I hope you understand this was never personal," she said, attempting a conciliatory tone. "The compensation adjustments were based on corporate guidelines." I looked up from the box of family photos and thank you cards I'd accumulated over 18 years. "That's the problem, Melissa. Dentistry is inherently personal. These aren't just patient files. They're people who've trusted us with their health, their fears, and their families for years." She sighed. "The dental landscape is changing. Small practices can't compete with corporate efficiency and purchasing power. Whatever you're planning, it won't work." I closed the box and stood. "Perhaps. But I'm not trying to compete with corporate dentistry. I'm simply offering an alternative." As I carried my belongings to my car, I spotted Mrs. Wilson, the 82-year-old patient who faithfully brought cookies every Friday, struggling with the new automatic doors that had replaced our manual ones. "Let me help you," I said, setting down my box to assist her. "Oh, Barbara, thank goodness," she said, patting my arm gratefully. "Everything's changing so quickly around here. First those uncomfortable new chairs, then that complicated check-in computer." She lowered her voice. "And they told me they're discontinuing the emergency senior appointments. What am I supposed to do if my bridge comes loose on a weekend?" I helped her inside, feeling a fresh surge of determination. "Actually, Mrs. Wilson, I'm making some changes myself. May I call you next week to tell you about them?" That evening, I drove by what would soon be Sunridge Family Dental. The space was still empty, awaiting construction, but the "Coming Soon" sign had been installed that afternoon. From the parking lot, it was clearly visible from Desert Bloom's front windows. My phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. "Just drove by the future office. Bold move, Mom. I'm proud of you." For the first time since Austin and Melissa had announced my compensation adjustment, I felt completely certain I was doing the right thing, not just for my career or my finances, but for my self-respect. The real work was just beginning. The transformation of the empty storefront into Sunridge Family Dental happened with surprising speed. Dr. Fuller had secured a business loan based on his excellent credit and my detailed business plan, allowing us to create exactly the kind of practice we envisioned. While the physical construction progressed, I focused on building our team. My first call was to Jessica, the hygienist who had seemed most disappointed by the corporate changes at Desert Bloom. "I can't offer corporate benefits yet," I told her honestly over coffee. "But I can promise you'll have time to actually talk with your patients, not just clean their teeth." "You had me at actually talk with patients," she replied, smiling. The new schedule at Desert Bloom allows 15 minutes for scaling and polishing. 15 minutes. It's impossible. Within 2 weeks, I'd recruited Jessica and 2 other staff members from Desert Bloom. I tried not to feel guilty about it. I wasn't actively poaching, just presenting options to people who seemed unhappy with the new management. The real challenge was approaching patients. Ethically and legally, I couldn't access Desert Bloom's patient records or directly solicit their clients. But there was nothing preventing patients who knew me from reaching out once they heard about my new venture. And in Chandler, Arizona, news traveled fast. "Barbara, I saw the sign next door." Mrs. Peterson exclaimed when she called my personal cell phone. "Are you really opening a new dental office with Dr. Fuller, right next to Desert Bloom?" "We are," I confirmed. "Our grand opening is next month." "Well, count me in." When that nice young girl at the front desk told me you'd left, I nearly cried. "It's not the same without you." She paused. "Can you transfer my records from Desert Bloom?" "You'll need to request that yourself," I explained carefully. "But we'd be happy to help you with the process when you come in." Similar conversations happened dozens of times over the following weeks. I was careful never to initiate contact with Desert Bloom patients. But I didn't discourage the calls that came my way through personal connections and word of mouth. 2 days before our grand opening, Austin appeared at the construction site, his expression thunderous. "This is how you repaid Desert Bloom's investment in you?" he demanded, gesturing at the newly installed Sunridge Family Dental sign. "By opening a competing practice literally next door?" I set down the box of office supplies I'd been carrying. "I don't owe Desert Bloom anything, Austin. I gave that practice 18 years of dedicated service. And now you're trying to destroy it. We've already had 68 patients request records transfers. 68! His face had turned an alarming shade of red. "The corporate office is furious." A small, petty part of me wanted to smile at this confirmation that our strategy was working. Instead, I kept my expression neutral. "Patients have choices, Austin. That's how the free market works, isn't it? Isn't that what you explained when you cut my compensation by 30%? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "This isn't over. Southwest Dental has attorneys on retainer who specialize in cases like this." "Cases like what, exactly?" Dr. Fuller appeared behind me, his tall frame imposing despite his relaxed tone. "A dental practice opening in a commercially zoned area. Patients exercising their right to choose their healthcare providers. Nothing illegal about that." Austin's gaze shifted between us. "You've made a powerful enemy," he said finally. As he stalked away, Dr. Fuller turned to me with raised eyebrows. 68 patients already? That's impressive." "It's just the beginning," I replied, watching Austin's retreating figure. "The real test comes next week." I wondered if Austin and Melissa were finally beginning to understand exactly what and who they had undervalued. Opening day at Sunridge Family Dental exceeded even my most optimistic projections. We had scheduled 20 patient appointments, a reasonable number for a first day of operations. But the waiting room was consistently full as people dropped by to see the new office and welcome me to my new role. By lunchtime, we had scheduled 47 additional appointments for the coming weeks. By day's end, that number had risen to 83. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Fuller said as we reviewed the day's numbers. "I've never seen a new practice generate this kind of immediate response." I smiled, thinking of the 18 years of relationships that had created this moment. "It's not about the practice. It's about trust." From my new office, I could see directly into Desert Bloom's waiting room, now conspicuously empty. Throughout the day, I'd spotted Melissa watching our bustling reception area, her expression growing increasingly concerned. At 5 p.m., Jennifer, my replacement at Desert Bloom, appeared at our front desk, looking nervous. "Hi, Barbara," she said hesitantly. "I was wondering, do you need another administrative assistant? They're talking about letting me go. Apparently, the patient schedule is underperforming expectations." I felt a twinge of sympathy for her. 3 weeks into the job? She nodded miserably. "Austin says it's my fault for not maintaining patient retention. But they keep changing the systems and cutting appointment times. Mrs. Wilson yelled at me yesterday when I told her we couldn't accommodate her emergency visit." I thought for a moment. We hadn't budgeted for additional administrative staff yet, but Jennifer deserved better than being scapegoated for Austin and Melissa's failures. "We can start you part-time," I offered, "with the possibility of full-time as we grow." The relief on her face made any financial strain worth it. "Thank you, Barbara. I promise I'll work hard." As Jennifer left, Jessica approached with another stack of records transfer requests. 39 more today, she reported. "At this rate, we'll have half of Desert Bloom's patients by the end of the month." I picked up the stack, each form representing a person who had chosen to follow me, rather than remain with the practice that had decided I was expendable. "It's not about revenge," I said, though the satisfaction I felt suggested otherwise. "It's about building something better." But watching Melissa's frustrated expression through the window, I couldn't deny the sweet sense of justice unfolding. 6 months after Sunridge Family Dental opened its doors, we had exceeded every benchmark in our business plan. What had begun as a risky venture had transformed into a thriving practice with over 2,000 patients, more than 2/3 of them transferred from Desert Bloom. The impact on our neighbor was impossible to ignore. Through the dental community grapevine, we heard that Southwest Dental Partners was considering selling the underperforming location. Austin had already been reassigned to another practice in Phoenix, and Melissa was desperately trying to rebuild patient relationships that had deteriorated under her management. "They're offering significant discounts to prevent more patients from leaving," Dr. Fuller mentioned one morning as we reviewed our weekly schedule. "Apparently, corporate isn't happy with the quarterly numbers." I nodded, unsurprised. Discounts won't solve their fundamental problem. Patients don't want to be processed like products on an assembly line. The difference between our approaches was evident in every aspect of our operations. While Desert Bloom now rushed patients through abbreviated appointments, we maintained comfortable scheduling that allowed for genuine interaction. Where they emphasized efficiency metrics, we focused on patient satisfaction and health outcomes. Mrs. Wilson now brought her famous cookies to Sunridge every Friday, and we had reinstated the emergency senior appointments that had meant so much to our older patients. The waiting room featured comfortable Southwestern decor, reminiscent of the original Desert Bloom, before corporate rebranding had stripped away its warmth and character. One Tuesday afternoon, I looked up from my desk to see Melissa standing uncertainly in my office doorway. "Do you have a minute?" she asked, her usual confidence noticeably absent. "Of course," I replied, gesturing to the chair across from me. She sat down, hands fidgeting in her lap. "I wanted to ask, how did you do it? How did you build such patient loyalty?" The question seemed sincere, almost desperate. 18 years of treating people like people, not profit centers, I answered honestly. "There's no corporate template for that." Melissa nodded slowly. "I'm being transferred next week. The regional manager said Desert Bloom's performance decline is unprecedented in the company's history." I could have responded with satisfaction or smugness, but seeing her genuine distress, I felt an unexpected pang of empathy. "I'm sorry it didn't work out." "Don't be," she said, rising to leave. "You proved your point. I just wish we had recognized your value before it was too late." As she walked away, I realized that the victory I'd been savoring wasn't about seeing Desert Bloom struggle. It was about creating a practice where both patients and staff could thrive. The revenge I'd sought had transformed into something more meaningful: validation. Over dinner that night, Catherine studied me with curious eyes. "You seem different, Mom. Happier." I considered this as I refilled our water glasses. "I am. For years I defined myself by my loyalty to Desert Bloom. When that wasn't valued, I thought I'd lost part of my identity." I smiled, feeling the truth of my next words. But it turns out I didn't lose anything. I found something better, my own voice. Catherine raised her glass in a toast. "To finding your voice at 50. I clinked my glass against hers, thinking about the journey of the past year, from longtime employee to business owner, from taking directions to making decisions. to new beginnings at any age. Looking back at the path that had led me here, I realized that Austin and Melissa's attempt to diminish my worth had actually revealed my true value, not just to Desert Bloom, but to myself. Their business decision had become my personal awakening, and for that, I was strangely grateful. The 30% pay cut they'd tried to impose had led to a 100% transformation in how I valued my own contributions. In the end, their purely business decision had taught me the most personal lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't getting even, it's moving forward.